Something has been happening across the American homeless van-dwelling population over the past 9 months that the mainstream van life content ecosystem has not reported, that the van conversion industry has actively worked to obscure, and that the population itself has been documenting quietly on private forums, in encrypted community chats, and in text message threads between vanlifers who have been on the road for more than 3 years. Full-time homeless vanlifers, particularly those who purchased or built converted Sprinters, Ford Transits, and Ram Promasters between 2020 and 2023, have started emptying their vans of virtually everything they installed. Not selectively, not gradually. Systematically, in one weekend, in coordinated purges that have become a distinct behavioral pattern within the population. By community estimates that have been circulating on private forums, the number of homeless vanlifers who have participated in the purge over the past year is approximately 150,000. The purge is not being driven by minimalism trend content on Instagram. It is not being driven by any single viral video or influencer campaign. It is not being driven by external pressure from municipalities or law enforcement. It is being driven by a specific set of discoveries the community has made about what the fully built van conversion actually costs its owner in a full-time homeless context, and what the emptied van saves them once you remove the accumulated infrastructure that the van life industry has spent a decade selling as essential. The discoveries have been genuinely disturbing. They have flatly contradicted almost everything the mainstream van life content has told the population about how to survive on the road. And they have revealed a specific gap between what the industry designed the equipment for and what the population that bought it was actually using it for, that once you see it, changes how you think about every product marketed to the van life community in the past 10 years. This video is about what those homeless van lifers discovered. Every one of the discoveries is grounded in publicly verifiable data about fuel economy, insurance exclusions, municipal enforcement patterns, and mechanical failure rates. Every one of them has independent community verification from the van lifers who have made the switch and are now living in stripped-down vans with dramatically better financial outcomes. And every one of them has been kept out of the mainstream van life narrative because the mainstream narrative depends on the sale of the exact products the community is now dumping. By the end of this video, you will understand why the purge is happening, why it has accelerated in 2026 specifically, and why the population that has already emptied its vans has quietly reached the conclusion that the fully built conversion, which was sold to them as freedom, was actually functioning as a slow financial predator that would eventually consume them. Now, the first discovery is the weight problem, and it is the one that quantifies most dramatically. A stock Ford Transit or Mercedes Sprinter off the lot weighs between 8,000 and 9,000 pounds. A fully built conversion with insulation, framing, cabinetry, a fixed bed platform, a water system, a toilet system, solar panels, a battery bank, an inverter, appliances, and the accumulated contents of a person's life weighs between 11,000 and 13,000 pounds. That is between 2,000 and 4,000 pounds of additional weight permanently installed on the vehicle. The additional weight has a direct and measurable impact on fuel economy. A stock Transit delivers roughly 18 to 20 miles per gallon in mixed driving. A fully built Transit conversion with the same engine delivers 8 to 12 miles per gallon. That is a fuel economy reduction of 40 to 50%, caused entirely by the weight of the build. For a homeless van lifer driving 12 to 15,000 miles per year, which is the low end for people who have to move regularly to comply with parking restrictions, the fuel cost difference between a built van and a stripped van comes out to between $1,500 and $3,000 per year. That is not a small margin. For a population that in many cases is surviving on $800 to $1,500 per month, an additional $1,500 to $3,000 per year in fuel represents somewhere between 1 and 3 months of total living expenses that the built van is quietly consuming every single year in exchange for amenities that the population, once they run the math, is realizing they do not actually need in order to survive. The weight problem also compounds over time in ways the community has only recently started documenting. Heavier vehicles wear tires faster, meaning tire replacement cycles that would run 3 to 5 years on a stock vehicle drop to 2 years or less on a fully built conversion. Heavier vehicles wear brakes faster, meaning brake service intervals that would run every 50,000 miles drop to every 25,000. Heavier vehicles stress transmissions harder, meaning transmission failure rates on converted vans in the 200,000-mile range are documented at substantially higher rates than on stock commercial vehicles at the same mileage. Every one of these effects is an additional cost the built van is imposing on the owner quietly over the years of ownership in ways that never appear on any single receipt, but that add up to thousands of additional dollars over the vehicle's lifetime. The weight is the first predator. The weight was designed into the van by the conversion industry, and the weight has been eating the population's survival budget the entire time they have owned the vehicle. Now, the second discovery is the maintenance risk profile, and this one is the one that has broken the most people. A stock Sprinter or Transit, mechanically stock and unmodified, has a well-documented maintenance profile that includes predictable service intervals and predictable parts costs. A converted Sprinter or Transit with a full build installed has an unpredictable maintenance profile because the conversion has introduced dozens of additional mechanical and electrical systems that were not designed by the vehicle manufacturer. Water pump failures, water tank leaks, battery system failures, solar controller issues, diesel heater problems, refrigerator compressor deaths, toilet system malfunctions. Every one of those failures is expensive to diagnose because the systems are often installed in ways that make access difficult. Every one of them is expensive to repair because the parts are aftermarket and the labor requires specialized technicians, and every one of them can strand the vanlifer in a location where they cannot function without the failed system, forcing them to either abandon the vehicle or pay whatever the repair costs. The community has been documenting these failures for years. Diesel heater repairs routinely cost $600 to $1,200. Water system failures on premium builds run $800 to $2,000. Battery bank replacements, when the lithium chemistry fails, run $2,000 to $5,000. And these are the routine failures. Catastrophic failures, in which multiple systems fail simultaneously or in which the underlying vehicle systems are damaged by the conversion, can run $10,000 or more. For a homeless vanlifer with an emergency savings of under $2,000, which is the median for the population, a single catastrophic failure ends the arrangement. The person is forced into a shelter, forced to sell the vehicle at a loss, or forced to abandon the vehicle entirely. The full build, which was sold as the path to independence, is in practice a payload of financial time bombs, any one of which can end the housing arrangement in a weekend. The maintenance problem is made worse by the specific geography of where full-time vanlifers actually spend their time. A diesel heater failure in a residential neighborhood in a city with multiple specialty repair shops within driving distance is a manageable problem. The same failure at a remote BLM dispersed camping site in central Nevada, 300 miles from the nearest specialty technician, becomes an emergency that requires towing the vehicle to the repair at additional costs of $500 to $1,500 just to move the van to a location where the repair can even be attempted. The full build conversion, in other words, has failure modes that are not just expensive but geographically fragile. The stripped van has failure modes that are limited to the stock vehicle systems, which have predictable service networks in nearly every American city. That geographic difference alone has ended more homeless van life arrangements than the initial mechanical failures did. Now, the third discovery is the visibility problem, and this one is the one that fundamentally changes how the community thinks about van life safety. A stock Sprinter or Transit, unmodified, parked overnight on a residential street or in a commercial lot, looks to observers like a work vehicle. Contractors, delivery drivers, and utility technicians drive them by the millions. Nobody notices them. A converted Sprinter or Transit, with roof-mounted solar panels, external ladder, roof vents, and the distinctive silhouette of a full build, looks to observers like a residential vehicle. It signals, unambiguously, that a person is living inside it. And in 2026, with anti-camping ordinances now enforced in over 40 American cities, that visual signal is the specific trigger that produces enforcement action. Portland, Los Angeles, Denver, Seattle, San Francisco, Austin, and dozens of smaller cities have implemented tow programs that specifically target vehicles identified as residential. The identification is visual. Enforcement officers do not typically enter the vehicle. They observe the exterior. If the exterior signals residential habitation, the vehicle is flagged. If the vehicle is flagged, it gets a citation. If the citations accumulate, the vehicle gets towed. Combined fines and impound fees average $900 per incident, which for the majority of the homeless van life population is more than they can pay. A single tow event ends the van life arrangement for a substantial percentage of the affected population, and the specific trigger for the tow is the visual signaling that the full build produces. The stripped van, mechanically identical, is not flagged because it does not signal. The full build is flagged because it does. That is the discovery. The build itself, which was sold as freedom, is functionally an enforcement magnet. The visibility problem extends beyond municipal enforcement into the domain of criminal targeting. Organized vehicle theft crews in major American metropolitan areas have developed sophisticated understanding of which vehicles carry high-value contents overnight. A converted van signals unambiguously that the occupant is a full-time vehicle dweller carrying laptops, cameras, tools, valuable outdoor equipment, batteries, and solar components inside the vehicle. Insurance industry loss data supports the observation that converted vans are broken into at rates substantially higher than ordinary passenger vehicles in the same parking lots. An unmodified Ford Transit parked in the same lot signals nothing about the occupant. The theft crews scanning the lot at 3 in the morning look at the Transit and see a work vehicle. They look at the converted Sprinter next to it and see a mobile pawn shop. The Sprinter gets hit. The Transit does not. And the population that has had its converted vans broken into and its possessions stolen has independently arrived at the conclusion that the visible signaling of the converted vehicle is itself a security liability that no amount of interior locking mechanisms can offset. Now, the fourth discovery is the insurance exclusion problem. Standard RV and van conversion insurance policies sold by Progressive, Good Sam, National General, and Nationwide contain specific language that limits coverage for incidents occurring during full-time habitation of the vehicle. The definitions vary by insurer, but the effect is consistent. A van lifer who suffers a break-in, a fire, a mechanical failure, or an accident while sleeping in the vehicle overnight may find, when they attempt to file a claim, that the entire claim is denied on the basis of the policy exclusion. Standard car insurance policies sold on stripped vans that are registered as ordinary commercial vehicles rather than as recreational vehicles do not typically contain these exclusions. Coverage applies wherever the vehicle is parked, whether the owner is sleeping in it or not. The insurance calculation, which most van lifers never run before they buy the specialty policy, comes out to this. A person driving a fully built converted Sprinter, insured under a specialty RV policy at $1,200 to $3,000 per year, has coverage that may not actually apply in the specific scenarios most likely to affect them. A person driving a stripped Transit, insured under a standard commercial vehicle policy at $500 to $800 per year, has coverage that does apply in those scenarios. The specialty policy is paying 2 to 3 times more for coverage that is functionally worse. And the industry has been selling this coverage to the van life community for years, using marketing language that emphasizes the specialty coverage without disclosing what the exclusion clauses actually do. The community that has read its own policy language and cross-referenced it with the actual claim denial data that has been circulating on community forums has concluded that the specialty coverage was another product that was designed to look protective while actually functioning as a revenue stream for the insurers. Now, the fifth discovery is the resale collapse. A used Ford Transit or Ram Promaster in stock configuration, sold in reasonable condition through commercial channels, will typically move within 1 to 3 weeks at a price close to the retail market for the vehicle. A converted Transit or Promaster with a full build installed will typically take 2 to 6 months to sell, at prices that are often 10 to 30% below what the owner invested in the conversion. The reason is that the buyer pool for a converted vehicle is much smaller than the buyer pool for a stock commercial vehicle. Commercial buyers do not want the residential build. Residential buyers are wary of the mechanical unknowns the conversion introduces. Financing is harder to arrange, insurance is harder to arrange, and the resale price collapses because the specialized buyer pool is thin and the general buyer pool has learned to avoid conversions. For a homeless van lifer who may need to liquidate their vehicle rapidly to cover a medical emergency, a legal fee, or a first month of rent on a permanent housing opportunity, the difference between selling in 1 week and selling in 3 months is not a small logistical detail. It is the difference between recovering their capital and losing it entirely. The stripped van sells fast at the full market price. The built van sells slowly at a discount. That difference has become one of the more painful discoveries the community has made because most of the people who invested $15,000 or $20,000 in their builds never expected to need to sell them, and only discovered the resale collapse when they tried to. Now put those 5 discoveries together and you have the specific reason that 150,000 homeless van lifers have systematically emptied their vans over the past 9 months. The build was consuming $1,500 to $3,000 per year in additional fuel. The build was carrying $5,000 to $10,000 in potential mechanical failure exposure per year. The build was flagging the vehicle for municipal enforcement in every major American city with anti-camping ordinances. The build was voiding insurance coverage in the specific scenarios most likely to affect the population. And the build was collapsing the vehicle's resale value at the exact moment the population might need to liquidate it. The community that ran the math independently reached the conclusion that the fully built van was not a housing solution. It was a financial trap sold under the branding of freedom that was quietly consuming the population that trusted it. The stripped van, by contrast, solves every one of those problems at once. Fuel economy returns to the manufacturer's specifications. The maintenance profile returns to the stock service intervals. The visual signal to enforcement officers reverts to what a normal commercial vehicle produces, which is nothing. The insurance coverage returns to the standard policy language, which actually covers the scenarios that matter. And the resale market returns to the commercial buyer pool, where the vehicle can be liquidated in weeks rather than months. The stripped van is not aesthetically impressive. It does not appear on Instagram feeds. It does not feature composting toilets or lithium battery banks or reclaimed wood interiors. What it does is function as an actually workable housing solution for a population that cannot afford the failure modes the built version carries. And the population has, one household at a time, figured that out. Now, the reason none of this has been reported in mainstream van life media is that the mainstream van life media in 2026 is almost entirely funded by the exact companies whose products the community is now dumping. Van conversion companies, solar panel manufacturers, portable battery brands, composting toilet manufacturers, diesel heater retailers, water system integrators, fixed cabinetry providers. Every one of these companies advertises on the largest van life YouTube channels. Every one of them sponsors the largest Instagram accounts in the niche. And every one of them has a direct financial interest in continuing to tell the community that these products are essential to the van life experience, at exactly the moment when the community that lives that experience full-time has concluded that they are not. The influencers have not reported the purge because reporting the purge would collapse their sponsorship arrangements. The manufacturers have not acknowledged the trend because acknowledging it would collapse their sales projections. And the community that is executing the purge has been documenting it in private forums where the mainstream sources have no visibility. Meanwhile, this country continues to spend tens of billions of dollars per year on defense budgets, corporate tax cuts, stadium subsidies, and foreign military aid, while over 500,000 Americans currently sleep in vehicles because permanent housing has become unaffordable in the specific price ranges the homeless van life population can access. The population that is emptying its vans is not doing so because it wants to live with less. It is doing so because the alternative was being priced out of survival entirely by the very industry that was supposed to make its housing arrangement work. The van life industry, which built its business on the promise of freedom, has been quietly extracting the last available dollars from a population that had already lost its permanent housing. And the population, when it finally noticed, responded by dumping the entire commercial infrastructure the industry had sold it. The homeless vanlifer sleeping in a stripped Ford Transit tonight with a foam mattress on the floor, a 5-gallon water jug in the corner, and a plastic bucket in a sealed plastic bag as the toilet solution is not a symbol of failure. That person is a symbol of a population that ran the math, saw what was actually happening, and made the specific choice to keep their housing arrangement viable by removing every non-essential piece of equipment that had been sold to them under the promise that it would make their lives better. What they discovered is that it was not making their lives better, it was making their lives shorter, financially, and eventually, when the failure started to cascade materially, and they responded by removing it, all of it. In a single weekend, one weekend at a time, spread across 150,000 households, without press coverage, without industry acknowledgement, and without any of the largest van life channels ever mentioning that it was happening. The purge is still accelerating. Every week, more households run the math and reach the same conclusion. Every month, more converted vans get stripped back to their commercial vehicle state. Every quarter, the community of vanlifers who have made the switch grows, and the community that has not made the switch shrinks. The trend has an obvious end state, which is that the fully built conversion as a category of vehicle becomes something that only well-funded weekend recreationalists own, because they are the only population that can absorb the costs the full build imposes without those costs threatening their housing arrangement. The homeless population that was sold the same vehicle under the same marketing has already figured out that it cannot afford it. And by 2027, community estimates suggest the majority of the homeless van life population will be operating stripped vehicles, with the industry that spent a decade selling them the alternative left, holding inventory nobody wants. If this reached you tonight, subscribe. Share it with anybody you know who is currently living in a fully built van conversion, particularly anybody in the homeless van life population who is still carrying the weight, the maintenance exposure, the visual enforcement risk, the insurance exclusions, and the resale collapse that the build produces. The math is public, the discoveries are documented, and the population that has already stripped its vans is not going back. The build was never freedom, the build was the predator. And what the community discovered in the process of dumping it is that the actual freedom was always in the stripped transit that they could have been driving the entire time.